Hello, thanks for being in a new video. This time I have full review of the Infinix GT 30 Pro. Let's get started. This is a device focused on gamers, so you could sacrifice some other things, giving total priority to the gaming experience. In this case, it has arrived in Mexico with two different versions, both with 12 GB of RAM, the basic one, with 256 GB of storage at a price of 6,299 pesos, more or less $335. Although, remember that the prices here are not the same. I'm not sure if the price will match those found in Mexico, considering taxes are included, but the price certainly appears quite appealing, particularly when you compare it to the level of performance it is expected to deliver. Additionally, there is a version with 512 GB available for 7,299 pesos, which is approximately $390. Furthermore, there's another version in black that includes the gaming kit, priced at 7,999 pesos, roughly $425. As you can see, there are numerous versions to choose from, and each one has its own appealing features. In this category, we will encounter various competitors. However, it seems to me that for gamers, this device will likely be the most appealing option in its category. However, its availability is quite restricted, as you can only purchase it through Mercado Libre or TikTok Shop. This means that obtaining this device will not be as straightforward, which might be considered one of its major drawbacks. However, let's begin by examining the design at the front, since here we notice that the bezels are quite thin, although they aren't completely symmetrical, as the bottom bezel is slightly bigger. Yet for its category, it truly competes well in terms of aesthetics. Moreover, it excels in resistance as it features Gorilla Glass wire, in addition to the mica that is already attached from the factory. Therefore, I believe you'll have excellent security for your screen. On the sides, we will notice plastic frames, as we couldn't expect anything more sophisticated. On the right side, we will encounter the volume buttons and the on-off button, which is distinguished by a striking red line. Additionally, although they are fairly discreet on this right side, we will also discover tactile triggers. You can only identify these triggers because they feature a subtle island symbol. It's a button without any relief or physical form, though with a case it might feel more like a button. This feature will definitely attract gamers to map triggers while playing. We'll show that function later. At the top, you'll find the secondary audio output along with an infrared sensor and a microphone. The left side is completely clean, and this profile view allows us to appreciate its thickness, which measures 7.99 millimeters. At the bottom, we have the tray for two SIM cards in addition to another microphone, a USB-C port, and finally, the grill for the main speaker. For a moment, let's focus on the back cover, which will definitely appear quite appealing to gamers. It features a variety of figures and even different tactile sensations that are visually attractive, providing an intriguing depth effect. Furthermore, there are certain areas where the red color is prominently highlighted, such as around the camera module where this red hue stands out a bit more. This combination of elements gives it an additional touch of attractiveness, making it even more appealing. But not only does it appear interesting at first glance, we are also going to discover what Infinix refers to as mechanical light waves. These waves are going to be useful for many purposes that we will explore later on, but obviously they provide that RGB touch that every gamer desires. So, as I mentioned, for gamers, this will be quite appealing. It comes in three versions: Dark Flare, Shadow Ash, and Blade White. In all three cases, it features IP64, which indicates that it is completely dust resistant. However, it is only splash resistant, so submerging it isn't an option. But given the price range and the power level it offers, I believe it's quite impressive. The screen measures 6.78 inches, offering a very generous and wide display. In this case, it boasts a resolution of 1.5K. To be precise, it is 1224 by 2720 pixels, which allows it to easily outperform all of its competitors. In terms of resolution, reaching 440 pixels per inch. Absolutely everything will appear very sharp on this screen, even the smallest text with the finest fonts. It's truly a very detailed screen, but it also provides us with excellent color quality. It features an AMOLED display, which is perceived to be of quite good quality. While it may not match the level of a high-end AMOLED, it is perfectly suitable for its category. You will discover two different types of color calibration options available, depending on whether you prefer more intense colors or a different color tone. Slightly softer, along with the manual adjustment of the screen's color temperature. What's really notable here is its peak brightness, which can reach as high as 4,500 nits, especially when you're watching HDR content. But yes, you heard correctly, this indeed will be another one of its strengths, because in this category, it is quite unusual to see screens that are compatible with HDR content. So in this case, we encounter a truly elevated experience and sensation, particularly when it comes to YouTube. However, if we consider Instagram, for instance, we won't discover any support for viewing HDR content. In fact, even on Netflix, HDR support is not available for us to find. Let's say it's basic HDR, but for its category, it's surprising it supports some HDR content. The minimum brightness is also comfortable enough for a good use at night, which of course you can combine with visual rest modes or night mode that bring all cell phones, but in this case, it should also be noted that the attenuation rate is more than 2000 Hz, so even if you are very sensitive to flicker, that can be generated in AMOLED screens with low brightness. In this case, you will not get to perceive it. And it also includes the additional dimming mode within the accessibility options, which will provide you with even greater comfort when you're viewing this screen in extremely dark environments. And if that's not sufficient, we are also going to discover a refresh rate of 144 Hz, making it a truly spectacular screen no matter where you choose to view it. It's completely superior to all its competitors, making it stand out remarkably. By default, it has a touch sampling rate of 240 Hz. However, in gaming mode with optimizations, it can reach 2160 Hz, ensuring nearly instant response to your gestures, giving you an edge in gaming. The device incorporates stereo sound with one speaker on the bottom and another one on the top area that has two outputs both through the frame and through the earpiece area for calls. The sensation is going to be of a very wide, very strong sound, and even with good presence of bass frequencies. The truth is, you can clearly tell that these speakers have been optimized by JBL. In this particular case, it is not just simple marketing if you perceive good audio quality. While they don't come with Dolby Atmos, they do include DTS sound, which provides us with several audio profiles. Additionally, there's a 5-band equalizer available, allowing us to modify the sound entirely to our liking. As a result, the experience here will be far superior to most of its competitors. Let's hear a quick test, but keep in mind it's not the same as live listening. The device features two microphones, allowing you to enjoy your music with headphones. It boasts excellent codec compatibility, including LHDC in its version 3, aptX and LDAC. Therefore, if you own high-resolution headphones, you can enjoy them with this device by checking the codec. Nevertheless, considering it's a device aimed at gamers, I believe we would have appreciated the inclusion of a 3.5mm jack to ensure latency-free audio. In this case, to enjoy this, you'll need USB-C headphones or an adapter. But using the charging port limits you, so no endless gaming. This is a main weakness. On the other hand, there are two microphones on this device. Let's listen to a test.
Este es un audio grabado con los micrófonos integrados del Infinix GT 30 Pro.
Voices appear to be captured well. Let's see how it performs in noisier settings. It seems to me that it makes a very fast adjustment of its gain, albeit a bit aggressive, but overall it will prevent distortions from being generated when being in too noisy environments, so the experience has been positive here as well. And finally, in this block, the device incorporates a haptic motor on the X-axis with an adjustment to the intensity. So, for gamers, once more, the feedback you'll get from holding this device in your hand will be excellent. And when you touch the buttons while you're playing, it's certainly going to provide you with a premium feel. This is definitely a very positive aspect. Aperture at this price. The front camera is 13 megapixels with an f2.2 aperture. and fixed focus. To access the camera quickly, double tap the volume down. This gives quick access. You can also draw a C on the screen if enabled, both work when locked. If using the device, go to your home screen to open the camera quickly. Notice that the device shows great agility when taking multiple photos with the front camera. It provides 2 levels of width and even includes a panoramic selfie mode, which is rare in devices, allowing for a much wider selfie. Naturally, with slower capture, you could get more appealing results. But even with the quick snap I took, the outcome is still impressive. At the top of the screen, we will locate a button that lets us select from. Multiple filters, however, we are able to preview them all at once. Additionally, we can slide up to access this extra menu where we have the option to enable a timer for 3, 5, or 10 seconds, and also manage the watermark that we want our photo to display. Furthermore, we have the capability to enable or disable a grid. And within the settings menu, we have the ability to enable several additional options for the shutter. For instance, we can clone this shutter, allowing us to place it anywhere we desire, making it much more convenient to press. If we decide we no longer want it on the screen, we can easily return it to its original position. Additionally, there is a section for capture methods where we can enable capture, using voice commands or simply tap on any area of the screen to take pictures. Interestingly, in this particular instance, it is missing the palm gesture, which would certainly be an enhancement and is a minor shortcoming. The outcomes achieved with this front camera appear straightforward, yet they align with the mid-range expectations. In this scenario, it doesn't stand out as much as it does in most of its other features, but it's fair to say that it aligns with what one would anticipate at this price point. It offers us various levels of amplitude, and each one delivers a quality that is quite acceptable. Obviously, it has fixed focus, so you can't zoom in on any object, and in backlit pictures, the preview is not well optimized. However, after taking the picture, it does a good balance of highlights and shadows. Honestly, it looks a good quality picture with good contrast, slightly overexposed to the most illuminated area. But the truth of the matter is that for the price range, we can't get too demanding. The camera delivers even at night. Notice how it manages to maintain a good level of detail if you are in front of a good light source, since in this case it also uses the screen to better illuminate your face by default. And I was honestly surprised at how well it performs at night, as it even handles noise from darker areas well. Personally, I prefer to turn off the lighting. I've added extra screen protection to reduce reflection on my lenses, and yet it still maintains this good quality I was telling you about, with good level of detail, good noise control at night. I liked it better than in the daytime. Here you are looking at another photograph in low light conditions, and honestly the result is positive even. In backlit night photography, you will see that it does not completely burn the most illuminated areas. Although it is true that the result is not so advanced, but for the price range, the truth is that it is quite surprising. However, it's important to note that in portrait photography, especially at night, there can be failures. You might find that some objects remain in focus when they shouldn't, and the image might have more noise than desired. This means that the result isn't as advanced as one would hope. During the day, though, portrait photography has demonstrated its ability to maintain focus on certain objects. This is true as long as the artificial intelligence correctly identifies and detects these objects. The technology is impressive, but it still has room for improvement, particularly in low light conditions. The truth has really surprised me in this regard. The only thing I wasn't pleased with was the night portrait photography. However, all the other features of this front camera, honestly, they perform very well. In some cases, they match its price, while in others, like this one, they are surprisingly good, offering an experience that exceeds the cost of this phone. At the back, we have a 14mm ultra-wide camera featuring an aperture of f2.2 with autofocus and an 8 megapixel sensor. Following that, there's the 23mm main camera, which comes with an aperture of f1.8 also, equipped with autofocus and a 108 megapixel sensor, although it lacks optical stabilization. The rear camera would be impressively quick. Observe how it can capture multiple photos without becoming slow or awkward at any time. If we hold down the shutter, we can slide the shutter to the left to capture a burst of up to 20 pictures, or you can slide to the right to begin recording a short video. Curiously, if we release our finger right away, the video stops while trying to capture the number 3. In our test, we noticed that the shutter is actually very accurate. It responds excellently, and in the case of the burst, it takes nearly a quarter of a second to initiate. However, it performs quite well with minimal space between each photo. Here, the only problem is its limit of 20 photos, which possibly it leaves you a very short space to extract your photograph. In the main interface, we can enable 108 megapixel capture if we see it necessary. We also have the same filters that we saw a moment ago, and also the timer options, but in this case for the main camera also adds an artificial intelligence focus option that would allow you to maintain a focus. Tap the screen to adjust focus and exposure, or switch to professional mode with controls for exposure compensation and shutter speed up to 30 seconds. ISO set up to 6400 and the white balance, focus, automatic even type of measurement, although in this case cannot take pictures in RAW. And for the smart capture experience, in this case the device does not automatically identify the documents, but you can manually go to the document mode where it will do this recognition, although it does not allow you to use the ultra-wide camera, but note that it will correct the perspective and crop the photo, but it does not apply color optimization or allow you to add multiple pages, so it is a simple scanner. But fortunately for the QR code, simply require you to point the main camera and then click on the corresponding button in order to open the associated link, making it definitely a positive aspect. The ultra-wide camera in reality delivers quite a basic result. While the center maintains a good level of detail at the edges, there's a noticeable and very sharp blur. The quality significantly drops at the edges and you can immediately see the transition here. Therefore, it's an ultra-wide camera that provides us with a broad range for capturing very spacious pictures. However, it doesn't really offer much in terms of quality, as even the colors appear quite different. Notice how the main camera exhibits superior color accuracy. However, it's worth noting that including an ultra-wide camera in a device primarily aimed at gamers is appreciated. The main camera performs quite well, offering good contrast, decent color accuracy, and satisfactory detail. In this instance, with it being 108 megapixels, observe how the photo appears with 3x zoom, which does not maintain 100% optical quality, but it is true that it is trying to take good advantage of the information from this sensor, so the short-range zoom I think is fine. Here it is. Now observing a result with 6x zoom, and it still appears quite good. Here is the 10x zoom image, which I would consider to be the maximum level, and the quality remains acceptable even though the device allows you to zoom in up to 15 times, maintaining good quality. However, if you prefer to zoom out instead, you are already aware of the ultra-wide camera, which, as I had mentioned earlier, has. There is a significant amount of distortion, and the image appears quite blurry, especially around the edges. This leads us to conclude that the camera is quite basic and not very advanced in its capabilities. However, you would also have access to the panorama mode, which allows you to achieve this level of width without too many distortions, although in this case it's a low resolution panoramic photograph, so it doesn't really stand out. Plus there are some areas where you notice a lot of blending between one photograph and the other in backlit scenarios that isn't too intense. We will see a good balance of lights and shadows from the preview, and the result is also good, although with the ultra-wide camera shows more distortions and chromatic aberration, mostly white, so it doesn't seem strange. This applies to other devices too. The ultra-wide camera performs well and the main camera even better. It was overcast, so the sky isn't blue, but it handled backlit scenarios well. Notice how at night the ultra-wide camera still performs well. Interestingly, it has less distortion than during the day and exposes bright areas well, keeping good detail. Although, of course, the main camera improves significantly, especially in terms of color management and detail. There is a noticeable presence of noise in darker areas. If you zoom in at night, you'll observe that the photo quality decreases significantly when there's no lighting in the frame. The main camera in particular tends to display too many artifacts in darker sections. And the same issue occurs when zooming in, resulting in a considerable loss of quality. But notice how it would look with night mode on. I think it really gives it more contrast, although the colors do get a little oversaturated. Now see how it does for macro photography. This is as close as you can get to small objects, and by zooming in, this would be the result we could achieve. I think it is not so attractive in this sense. For scenes with movement, if you are not under the sunlight, it will be impossible to have a well-defined photo. With the ultra-wide camera, you'll notice that the movements appear swept, which was anticipated. Interestingly, the same surprising effect will occur with the main camera as well. For very rapid movements, it is essential to be under direct sunlight to achieve optimal results. Now, let's take a closer look at the high-resolution mode that is integrated into this device. Notice how it successfully recovers a commendable level of detail. However, it's important to mention that the sharpness management is not perfect, as some elements still appear rather blurry. So, I wouldn't say it's special in high-resolution photography or anything like that, because it needs a ton of stability to be able to maintain a good level of detail. And finally, for portrait photography, I think it performs well enough, although in this case, even though it allows you to zoom in a bit, the photo loses a lot of definition and it doesn't have such advanced edge detection. In this price range, there are few better options for portraits. For video recording, there is something very noteworthy because it does have support in 4K at 60 frames per second for the main camera, reaching the level of what one would expect in much more expensive devices. In fact, the main camera and the front camera can also record in 4K at 30 frames per second, and the ultra-wide camera at least reaches 4K at 30 frames per second, so it's really well covered in terms of to the top recording levels in its class. When it comes to video recording, the device includes a wide range of functions. In fact, in this aspect, it can certainly be emphasized. On many competitors, right away we have the button here to turn the super stable mode on or off, and you can also choose different resolutions. But note that in the left sidebar is where we will find several icons that in this case did not look very good due to the white background. That was on the wall, but note the first button allows us to enable some color filters, each with its own intensity setting, though in this case these effects don't match the resolution 4K. But it's not only color effects, it's also effects. Enjoy adding a gentle touch of rain or snow to your videos. This way, you can avoid the need to edit the video later. Afterward, you have the option to record the video with some editing already applied, which can be beneficial for creative scenes. In fact, it also includes these framing options, allowing you to create an ultra panoramic cinema-style video, complete with vignette and shadow around the edges. Alternatively, you can use this small mask to give the impression of recording like an old movie. To be honest, these features aren't typically found on other devices, making them a standout. We also have the portrait recording style, which may not be very appealing, but it's there. Additionally, there are facial beauty options, though they're not available in K either. However, it offers various presets with an intensity selector, as you can see. Or you can choose AI makeup here. And ultimately, you are provided with these various options, which allow you to manually adjust and modify the softness of the skin, the tone of the skin, the color of the makeup, and much more. The skin tone with a variety of different makeup shades in addition. The face, make it thinner, modify the eyes. In short, a host of functions that are usually only for photography, but in this case applied to video with full HD resolution. I believe the video experience is comprehensive, and it even includes a blog mode. In this setup, you will have the opportunity to access these templates, which will allow you to gradually fill your videos with clips. This way, you can manage to have an edited video simultaneously while you are in the process of recording. It includes a variety of categories, allowing you to easily determine which one aligns best with the style of video you are aiming to create. Once selected, it will provide you with suggestions to help you achieve a similar outcome. While recording video, note that with Full HD, we can switch between the ultra-wide and main cameras. The zoom slider is odd because it's inverted. Sliding left zooms out and sliding right also zooms out. All cell phones have it upside down, so it's a bit strange. Here we also have a button to take pictures, another button to pause and resume video, and one more. Button to turn on the flashlight, and in this case with 3 levels of intensity adjustment. It's a comprehensive experience, though it doesn't let us switch to the front camera before recording. Here, you're seeing the result from the ultra-wide camera, which gives the impression of having... However, there are distortions and blurring, it's not a high-quality lens, and colors appear more saturated than usual. When recording in K, it only lets you zoom in digitally, and it doesn't. Switch over to the main camera, making it a straightforward recording. Here you can see an example using the main camera to record in 4K at 60 frames per second, showcasing the fluidity it can achieve. In this price range, it is almost impossible to find another device at launch with such capabilities. Now that you're viewing the result in 4K at 30 frames per second, I believe the colors aren't quite as accurate. In this regard, we won't discover too strong a point, and there's also the zoom you're already expecting. It will be of a very basic quality, but for the category, I think it complies. Look specifically at the behavior of the zoom while recording in 4K. I feel it provides a sensation of insufficient detail. Thankfully, it does have good stabilization. However, you cannot fully utilize the sensor's information as you could if it were visible in the photograph. In the video, it's not quite what we hoped for, but it's understandable given the price range. Now remember, when recording in full HD, you can switch between cameras. Here's how it looks. I think the transition is handled well. Well, although the camera has changed quite a lot in terms of color and backlight, notice how the ultra-wide camera is going to have a good feeling at least. There are no aggressive jumps in the exposure or anything like that, but I already anticipated that the image quality is very low. It looks quite blurry. With the main camera, we will also observe a good performance. It tends to be slightly overexposed in the brightest areas, yet overall, it performs quite well. However, during nighttime, the ultra-wide camera definitely struggles excessively. We notice a very low level of detail and even observe how the autofocus begins to get quite confused, resulting in a very poor image. Meanwhile, with the main camera, we will gain a bit more detail. It manages noise effectively for its category, though the white balance might shift slightly during recording, which is reasonable for this price range. Fortunately, with the main camera, noise is much better managed, providing a good experience. As for stabilization, here is the result when recording with the ultra-wide camera in 4K with stabilization on. I think for walking it's okay, but running not so much. The camera is basic, so you see flickering from focus changes and distortions. Recording in 4K at 30 FPS with the main camera is fine while walking, but not ideal for running, especially with nearby elements. The focus of the main camera, in my opinion, performs quite well. It doesn't change instantaneously, but this actually helps maintain correct focus even during slightly more subtle movements. Honestly, in this regard, there hasn't been much difficulty unless you encounter very complex lighting conditions. Surprisingly, in this case, the ultra-wide camera also includes autofocus. Although it's somewhat slow, I must admit that it's quite intriguing to see such a feature present in this category of cameras. There are even much more expensive devices that do not have ultra-wide camera with autofocus, so here it should be noted that you can record from very close, very small objects with 4K quality, which is very good. Interestingly, this cell phone also allows us to record with the portrait mode, something that in the category will also be very usual. Obviously, the detection is not 100% accurate, and in this case, if it stops detecting the face, the effect is disabled. The intensity of the blur effect will only increase significantly if you are extremely close, but it will not be subtly reduced if you are far away. Also note that with certain objects, it could maintain the focus correctly, obviously. Extremely complex objects will indeed be complicated to handle, but the fact remains that for the cost, the portrait recording quality is actually quite impressive. It even includes another effect where the bokeh style is slightly more elongated, which looks really pleasant. However, it still maintains its behavior, that is, the intensity of this blurring effect does not diminish if you are at a distance. With objects, it can perform well as long as it is not. Considering it's such a sophisticated object with numerous gaps, the truth is that it looks quite impressive. Although in this instance it cannot record in 4K, the resulting quality is in Full HD. Given the price, it is indeed very good. Regarding slow motion, it offers support for 120 frames per second in Full HD. It looks quite good, and I believe for this price range, the slow motion feature truly meets expectations. Additionally, we can go even slower, reaching up to 240 frames per second, also in Full HD. However, at this level, the movements appear a bit unusual, almost giving off a jelly-like sensation. Therefore, I wouldn't highly recommend recording slow motion at this extreme level of slowness. On the other hand, for the fast camera, the most basic setting is 15x, which may be too fast for people or for walking, plus it has no stabilization, although it can be in 4K, so it has positive and negative points at the same time, and in fact it could go up to 5400x to record specific things. In this case, we simply recorded the clouds, so if you're in something static, the truth is that the result is nice because it is in 4K and with very good speed, but for movements of people is not so nice. The front camera, surprisingly, records extremely well for its category. It's quite impressive considering the fact that it allows us to capture high-quality footage. The front camera offers 4K resolution at 30 frames per second, providing decent stabilization. However, the result is not very pleasing when there's backlighting. These issues will be noticeable. The brightest areas are completely overexposed. This was anticipated given the price range, yet it remains surprising that it can record in 4K at 30 frames per second. In this regard, it truly meets expectations perfectly. In fact, here you are observing the result taken at night, and I was pleasantly surprised by it. We are not going to encounter an image with excessive noise or low definition or anything similar. By default, it lights up the screen to illuminate your face, so the ideal result is achieved when it is near a good light source. Regarding illumination, when you move into darker areas, you'll notice a slight jello effect due to its aggressive noise reduction, but for its category, I would say it records quite well. Quite simply, you really need to make sure that you are quite close to some artificial light for good results. The front camera lacks slow motion, but it does have time-lapse like the rear camera. A nice surprise is the dual recording mode, though it lacks stabilization. Be cautious, but you can record both cameras simultaneously and move the floating frame, and it has autofocus enabled along with the capability to zoom in and out. However, with stabilization turned off, the outcome might be somewhat harder to manage. It even lets you switch between both cameras during the recording process. The truth is, performance is great with many features. To switch to the ultra-wide camera, stop and start recording. You can zoom in and out, though it won't switch to the main camera. By stopping and restarting, you can also use split screen mode, which is interesting here. In this case, it enables you to make adjustments, allocate space for each camera, and switch between views. It retains the zoom functionality and also autofocuses once more, giving an overall impression that feels quite sophisticated in all these aspects. Regarding the software, we have Android 15, and it's running XOS GT version 15.0.3. This is the customization layer from this particular manufacturer, designed specifically for gamers. The manufacturer provides us with 2 years of software updates and 3 years of security patches. In my opinion, for this category, it is still quite good. While it may not be the best update policy out there, considering that it's a device primarily aimed at gamers, it seems to be an appropriate decision. When it comes to special features, it provides what is referred to as an always-on display. This feature allows you to choose from various covers and configure whether to show or hide notifications. However, the screen doesn't remain on all the time, which makes me question why they call it always on display. Additionally, it includes a smart notification reminder designed to prevent you from feeling overwhelmed by silencing notifications that aren't deemed highly important. Actually, it introduces another interesting feature, adaptive volume for notifications handy. When you get lots of messages at once, since notifications can become quite annoying, in such cases the notification sound decreases if it detects you're getting too many. It also features the dynamic bar, a small indicator many manufacturers are adding, reminiscent of the iPhone style. It appears, for instance, during facial unlock on a call or while recording a voice memo even when charging. It also displays a small animation in this particular area, or when you find yourself using the media player, you'll notice something interesting. Additionally, the media applications will have the capability to be minimized right here, and this includes all the playback controls, which is definitely a positive feature, even if you have the media player open and, for instance, a stopwatch or a timer running simultaneously. You will observe that this kind of capsule is cleverly divided into two sections. This design choice provides a sense of well-thought-out software design, as it serves not just as a decorative element but also as a highly functional one. This capsule will also appear when you make payments using NFC or when it is actively running. As a hotspot with the timer and using the stopwatch, and even with Google Maps, which is truly outstanding, and also while performing screen recordings. The device additionally offers floating windows, which let you display up to 2 apps simultaneously in this view. It's compatible with Instagram and YouTube, plus you can resize these windows, position them wherever you like, or minimize them. The performance is optimal. You can use split screen for 2 apps. In the middle, you can adjust its distribution, and combined with the floating windows, you would have up to 4 applications open at the same time on the screen. In the smart sidebar, you will not only have the option to open apps in a floating mode, but you also have direct access to your recent files or a smart center, which is a kind of clipboard, to drag and drop content like attaching files in Gmail or WhatsApp more easily. And if you are, for example, in a video application, other options also appear. The notepad also offers a number of other options such as screen capture or recording, change the style of notifications, to avoid annoying interruptions, activate the do not disturb mode, even improve the resolution or color of the video, so it also adds good options for better comfort when you are playing video content. And in this case, you can choose through different switches in which applications you want it to be. This video toolbar also incorporates the social assistant, which features various WhatsApp functions. For instance, there is an option to summarize calls. This function allows you to analyze all the contents of audio or video calls and then provides you with a summary. In the notepad, we can also find the bidirectional translator option. As its name implies, this feature enables you to communicate with people in another language, with the device serving as an intermediary translator. You have the ability to select the language and the voice, even if you prefer not to use your own voice. Instead, you can choose to use only the voice of the cell phone. Additionally, it includes a center where you can read your WhatsApp messages without needing to open the app, ensuring they remain unread. Furthermore, it offers a tool for creating stickers and another feature for saving your contact statuses, which are typically not downloadable. And within the settings, we will also come across the section for mechanical light waves. This section will allow us to configure how we prefer these backlights, which I mentioned a moment ago, to behave. In fact, you can make use of them in various situations. Right from the start, it includes a party mode that enables the lights to remain on continuously. Additionally, it offers 3 distinct modes of operation depending on how you desire them to light up. As you observe, they transition smoothly between various colors, featuring eye-catching gradients that are truly appealing. This makes them an excellent choice for gamers who appreciate visual aesthetics. Additionally, these lights can serve as a notification LED, offering a practical and stylish solution for multiple uses. Additionally, it can be utilized to announce the timer on the camera when capturing pictures or recording videos. Furthermore, when a call comes in, it can light up, and while playing music, these lines could illuminate. However, in this scenario, they do not synchronize with the music's rhythm. But regardless of the method, they certainly help to add decoration. Also, when playing a game or while charging the cell phone, and even while talking to Fulex, the artificial intelligence assistant of the device, or just when you navigate to the home screen. Each of these options includes its own switch, allowing you to choose exactly when you want these lights to turn on or remain off. Moreover, we discovered several gestures, such as drawing letters on the screen while it's off to launch an application. Additionally, you can double tap to either turn the screen off or on, and even control the music using gestures when the screen is off. To skip to the next song, go back to the previous song, or to pause and then resume. You can also answer calls with gestures, useful when you're eating and want to keep your phone clean. Interestingly, it includes a one-handed mode, but it's a bit hidden. You activate it in the quick settings center, but to open that, you need to reach the top of the screen, making it somewhat inconvenient to activate. And well, it allows you to switch between left or right placement, although you cannot change its size, but it does reduce the entire screen. Regarding artificial intelligence, we discovered that the complete suite of Infinix truly offers a wide range of options. In fact, in the description, I have included a link to a video where I explain in detail how each of the options mentioned below functions. While in this instance, it integrates two new features specifically within the photo editor, where we will now find an option known as sharpness of. Moreover, this feature is intended to enhance the level of detail in our photographs. While it doesn't create a dramatic difference, having this option is certainly appreciated and beneficial. And the second new feature is the AI extender, which will enable us to have an alternative. Framing by creatively imagining what might surround our picture to complete it. With just a few taps, you can broaden your picture if you had a frame that was too confined and needed to find a way to expand the shot. These are merely two of the additional new features added to the intelligence draft. Artificial, specifically Folax, acts as its own voice assistant that incorporates generative artificial intelligence. It provides support for call assistance, translation assistance, social assistance, writing assistance, and even offers help within the Notes app. In fact, it also has artificial intelligence wallpaper generator and many other features that, and I insist I describe in full in another video whose link I leave in the description. And in addition to the entire suite of Infinix options, it also brings Circle Thorax. Google search is quite effective in this price range for finding it. Like other Android devices, this one includes Gemini for chatting. By default, it also comes with Folax, allowing you to choose between Google Assistant or Infinix Assistant for your chats. For security, we find a fingerprint reader inside the screen that allows a maximum of 5 records. Quite well to have. Good versatility, and being inside the screen also allows us to change the animation when detecting your fingerprint. It also includes basic 2-dimensional facial unlocking, and as security tools, we will find the secure folder called X-Hide, where you can back up all private content. Additionally, with X-Hide, you have the capability to hide applications. Furthermore, it provides an application lock feature which requires verification before you can access an application. Moreover, it includes an application cloner known as X-Clone. However, in this scenario, it only allows cloning of social apps, not any other apps you have installed. A notable feature is named Blank Data, which lets you choose specific apps to receive. Only blank data instead of accessing your complete contact list or calendar. It also features an anti-spy filter. A small window remains visible, while the screen dims, useful with people watching your screen. There's a secure keyboard option that doesn't memorize pins and passwords, and then a repair mode to lock content when sending the device for repair. Additionally, it supports a dual system, enabling you to unlock your screen with a code distinct from your main space's code, essentially giving you the experience of having 2 phones in one device. Furthermore, it offers a kids mode which provides the capability to control which applications can be accessed, set a time limit for each use, and impose a restriction on mobile data usage if we permit the internet connection. It also provides eye care and protection, ensuring they avoid using the device on a low battery, along with alerts for bad posture. Therefore, it's a highly comprehensive kids mode that not only lets you lend the cell phone to the little ones with more confidence, but also helps take care of their eyesight and more. Additionally, it includes numerous anti-theft features. For instance, if someone tries to unlock your phone and fails twice, the phone can take a picture with the front camera and upload it to the Infinix cloud. I find it a pretty nifty feature that I haven't seen in other manufacturers, only Infinix and Tecno. It also has alerts so that, for example, if you are charging your cell phone and you leave it on a table, if someone comes to unplug it, it will emit an alarm. The same thing will happen if someone unplugs your hearing aids, if you have these options enabled. And it also has the option to find my Infinix device with its own map implementation. That is, this will be in addition to Google's own function that all Android devices have. In fact, in the description, I leave you a link where I tell you all the options developed by Google that are also present in this. And all other Android devices, highlighting the extended unlock that allows you to keep unlock the phone in secure environments. In the description, you have available that video if you want to explore more. This cell phone's battery is 5,200 meters. However, let's not get overly excited just by looking at the capacity number alone. Let's move on to the tests. In this particular case, my foreground rain test lasted for 4 hours and 8 minutes. This result was a bit underwhelming, especially when you consider that the battery is supposedly rated at over 5,000. But that's when it's under maximum demand. Let's remember it has a powerful processor, and in our background raining test, we noticed it efficiently manages the energy of background apps, preventing fast consumption. This increased to 7 hours. Finally, in our test with only YouTube videos at 50% screen brightness, the device reached 11 hours and 41 minutes. The truth is, it was quite short in this aspect. It seems that the screen, processor or software aren't really optimized well enough for these types of activities to conserve battery. Consider that other devices with lower capacities have managed to exceed 18 hours, so it definitely falls short in this regard. But you know that battery life depends on your day-to-day life, so these are just figures, but each user will have their own consumption. Fortunately, it comes with a power-saving mode that you could use in some situations, and also the ultra-saving mode, which will allow us to restrict more options in emergency situations when the battery is a total priority. We're also going to find 45 watts charging with the built-in charger in the box. Look at the graph. The first few minutes of charging did reach a high peak of 37 watts. In fact, in 15 minutes of charging, it reached 29% battery. In 30 minutes, it reached 57% and the full charge was finished in 50 minutes. So I think it can be considered a fast charge, especially in the price range. But if that surprises you, make sure to pay attention because it also supports wireless charging, which is something definitely unexpected in this category. And it's a 30-watt charge. In our test, after 15 minutes, it reached up to 14%. And at 30 minutes, it increased to 28%. So while it's not as fast as cord charging, it can definitely help you with convenience. And the full charge can be completed in less than an hour, specifically within 45 minutes. In this case, it must be said that in addition to being wireless charging, it is magnetic charging, which should help to make charging a little more efficient, although it requires the use of a special case for the magnet to attach to the back cover of the device. And in addition to wireless charging, it supports 5 watts reverse wireless charging to put charging things on the back of the cell phone. It also has smart charging and charging lock with a range from 80 to 95% so that you can take care that the battery does not deteriorate so fast. Therefore, it is very well equipped in this particular aspect. It even offers a low temperature charging option. If you prefer the battery not to heat up while using fast charging, you can activate this feature. The phone will then charge at a slower pace, but it will remain much cooler. Additionally, it includes a charging restriction or bypass feature. This allows you to keep the cell phone connected to power without using the battery, thereby avoiding overheating. This feature is especially useful for playing extended gaming sessions without relying on the battery. As you see, it has all the needed options for a good experience, except the autonomy wasn't surprising. When it comes to connectivity, there's some positive news. This device supports 5G networks. However, it's interesting to note that it does not include an option to choose which apps can use your mobile data and which ones cannot, so you need to be careful. Additionally, it supports Wi-Fi 6 networks, providing it has a good download speed, so in both ways it does very well. Obviously, it does not have support for eSIM, but we will find Bluetooth 5.4 and NFC to make mobile payments and have good stability in the connections. Additionally, it features OTG, allowing you to connect accessories via the USB port. However, it lacks an FM radio. On the bright side, it includes screen projection capabilities, but keep in mind it's only wireless and mirror type. This means it's a basic projection, where you can't hide certain things while projecting, and you can project using a cable. Fortunately, Android Auto will function both wirelessly and with a wired connection. Finally, regarding the sensors, we have an accelerometer, geomagnetic field sensor, orientation sensor, gyroscope and physical proximity sensor. Note that the proximity sensor only works when the device is upright, so keep this in mind to avoid inconsistencies. Additionally, it includes infrared, which can be used via the We Live app. To make this phone a universal remote control, allowing you to configure, if you own a TV or any other device like an air conditioner, camera, lamp, or any item that supports infrared control, you can include it with this device. The Infinix band acts as a universal remote control, which is highly beneficial. When it comes to the ecosystem, honestly, the feeling is somewhat unusual. Infinix is indeed a brand that offers a wide range of products in its catalog. However, this is true only for certain countries. For instance, in India, consumers can access the Infinix Xpad, the Infinix Xbox, the Infinix X Watch, and also the Infinix Band. But in Mexico, the catalog is extremely limited, lacking any kind of accessory. Therefore, the ecosystem's availability will significantly depend on your location. In Mexico, at least, the ecosystem looks very limited, and even though it offers you its own cloud, it only backs up very basic things, depending on Google Drive and other Google services, although Infinix has enough potential to not depend so much on Google, and you can tell because they have their own platform named My Health, its own home control application called We Life, although curiously in this cell phone did not come installed. But you can install it from Play Store and also have an application called Care that allows us to access to cell phone warranty services and more features. though they haven't included their own app store. Still, it doesn't seem as reliant on Google as some other brands. However, I have not been able to test the interaction between their devices, because in Mexico, we do not have the rest of the ecosystem companions. Let's test the performance of the Infinix GT Pro, which has the MediaTek Dimensity 8350 Ultimate processor manufactured and in a 4nm process, something quite powerful for the price category, in which it competes and also accompanied by 12 GB of physical RAM. You can see it took practically 2 seconds on average to open each application, showing really a lot of power for the category. It gives you a performance of a flagship of 1 or 2 years ago, but at this price it is surprising. Next, let's take a closer look at the behavior of these 12 GB of RAM. You'll notice that we're not seeing any app restarts, at least not at this moment. The apps continue to run smoothly, and in this instance, we have run 16 apps. So it appears that it's performing excellently in this aspect, and the overall experience is going to be really quite good. Even if you have many applications open at the same time, the device will not become slow. You will not experience any white screens or application reboots as you switch between each one of them. Now, let's test how it behaves when scrolling, for example, in these applications that are loading more content from the internet. As you can see, the behavior is really quite good. You only have to wait for a few moments when new content is loading, but at no point does the device feel slow or heavy. So truly, if you're seeking performance, this device is the best you can find in this category. Notice how it can even load very smoothly those complex filters that usually in this category are not going to provide you with the same level of fluidity when working. Truly, here we perceive a significant amount of quality with this processor, which is extremely powerful for its category. I must emphasize that the performance is nearly what you would expect from a high-end device, maybe from past years, but the experience is just incredibly impressive when you are working. Besides the physical RAM, it includes 6 GB of virtual RAM by default, extendable to 12 GB more. We're unsure of its usefulness since the physical RAM is already excellent, so I disable it, but it's available. For storage, we have 256 GB. Although in this particular case, you are unable to insert a micro SD card, which is one of the few drawbacks it has when compared to certain other competitors within this price range. However, the internal storage is already quite good, even significantly better, much better, including more storage space. Additional storage will enhance the overall capacity and efficiency, providing more room for data and files, which is always advantageous. Therefore, the presence of more storage will have improve the situation and superior capability and flexibility. This tool allows you to extend the storage capacity with greater ease. It's important to note that while you can browse the contents in this instance, it lacks the intelligent management found in some other devices. However, it still provides a straightforward way to manage storage, even if it doesn't offer the advanced smart management features, like other devices offering more filters to easily find duplicate and large files. Here, you'll need to do it manually or use other apps, but for the tech savvy, we're running a storage speed test so you can see for yourself. As you can see, it gave us 45 megabytes per second in read and 3293 megabytes per second in write, numbers well above those of most of its rivals, so they are not. Not only provides you with excellent storage capacity in terms of quantity, but it also offers remarkable speed. This ensures that when you are installing applications or engaging in activities, like exporting videos, the process will be notably swift and efficient. Let's proceed to the real-life test using 4K videos. It's worth noting that 4K is a tougher test for this category. Let's see the results. Remember, these clips were recorded with this service in 4K, and when combined, they have a total duration of 1 minute. That's it. It took under 30 seconds, meaning it took even less time than other competing rivals take to export in full HD. So, it shows remarkable performance, even while editing videos in 4K. Honestly, it is a highly recommended device for those seeking maximum performance. The gaming experience is available in the X Arena application, where we will include this particular gesture. The game control panel will provide us with detailed information, for instance, about the current status of the device. This includes data like CPU usage, RAM status, storage status, and GPU usage. Additionally, here we find a button that enables us to choose from various voice options. We have a microphone button, though some are blocked by payment options. It's interesting, something not seen in other devices, making this phone unique and offering news in. As far as gaming is concerned, then there are some free voices available that you can use to substitute your own voice during in-game chats. Additionally, right here, you'll find the settings where we can choose whether we want this application to include sound effects, also detect game state and storage control. More interestingly, for each game, we can access the control panel to choose the performance profile and GPU settings for game detail, graphics, optimize the touch response, and in this case, select what type of game it is to also improve the response of the controls, and we also find the network optimization to have lower latency, We have a section called My Strategies, which we'll explore shortly, and there's also a button to reset all options. You can manage the games individually, but let's dive into some of this content and notice right away. On the left side, we are able to observe the various optimizations that are being applied. Additionally, here you have the ability to scroll and display this sidebar. From this sidebar, you can add shortcuts to your most frequently used applications. This feature allows you, for instance, to respond to a message without having to exit your game. Moreover, it provides the convenience of checking once again on the consumption or the current status of the frames per second. Additionally, here you will find buttons that allow you to take screenshots or record them. You can even select and search for something currently displayed. For instance, if you unexpectedly encounter an opponent you're unfamiliar with, you can use this feature to gather more information about those elements. Notice that it generates keywords here to help identify what the graphic refers to. Following that, we will locate a button to clear the RAM memory and adjust the brightness control. Next, we have the GT trigger. These are the triggers located at the top, and as you can see in this example, they are mapped. To select these buttons, we'll enter the game. While the game loads, I'll demonstrate how you can configure it, because in this scenario, you have a variety of options available. As presets of button positions to facilitate a quick change, here you have the option to add strategies. For example, let's edit this one that's placed. Notice here, it allows us to choose how we want the left trigger to function, whether we prefer a simple touch, quick touches, or even activations when pressing and releasing. The same applies to the right trigger as well. After that, we have the ability to position these buttons wherever we desire, precisely on top of the virtual buttons, allowing us to enable the tools effectively. In this straightforward manner, as you are observing it right now, please take a moment to watch closely. We are going to position this first trigger over here, and then we will place the other trigger right over there. Now, let's proceed to apply the changes so that you can clearly see how, in this particular case, they are being implemented over the specific zones that I have carefully selected. Then, using the left trigger, I will have the ability to perform a jump, and with the right trigger, I will be able to execute the trigger or carry out the attack action. Thus, in this manner, I am able to configure the various behaviors accordingly of the triggers. And here we also have in the general configuration an option called Quick Combo. This means that you can record several steps, and with just one trigger, we will be able to select a combo of quite interesting options. For instance, in this case, we are going to record a new combo. There, it is ready. Then we are going to press the record button and it shows me a countdown. I am going to record a very simple routine. We are going to move left and right then. We'll activate the sight, adjust slightly and fire twice, then reload and that's it, finish recording. Now, I can customize the execution speed and use loop mode to repeat these actions. Let's set it up like this. So now that we have successfully saved our combo, we can proceed to map it to one of our available triggers. For instance, let's take a look at our list of triggers. And I'm going to choose the combo test. Let's go ahead and save the changes and then watch as now with just a single touch. It will flip left, then right, aim, shoot twice and reload the weapon. It accomplished all of this with impressive speed. This feature greatly simplifies gameplay in certain games that demand very long presses combined with rapid actions. As a result, it enables you to react more swiftly and provides a significant competitive edge. Really great over many rivals, they will surely be a useful tool gamers will enjoy. In this section, you have the option to enable or disable the vibration feature as well as the color response that appears at the top. Additionally, you can adjust the sensitivity of the touches you make in this trigger area. Moreover, you have the capability to enable the floating button, which allows you to swiftly change the trigger options you have configured here. To sum up, the triggers offer a significant advantage that almost no competitor in this segment can match, making them an incredibly important feature. Will have, except for the Nubian Neo GT, but this device has a simpler processor. In addition, we have some eye care options available around here, and there is also image stabilization, which provides a more consistent image quality. Furthermore, we offer an esports mode that blocks any interruptions, ensuring that absolutely nothing disrupts your gaming experience. Moreover, we optimize the touch response on the screen, and you can also enable the super boot option. This feature ensures that the next time you run the game, it will be cached, significantly reducing the time it takes to open. And we have smart cooling that adjusts phone performance to prevent overheating. If it detects high heat, it might limit frames per second to manage temperature. You can control this manually. There are also options for network enhancement and restriction. You can use the charging function to send energy directly to phone components, bypassing the battery, allowing long play without overheating. There is an option called games off screen. I personally am not a fan of the translation, but it refers to dimming the screen temporarily. This feature helps the game to use less battery while you're waiting for content to download or something similar. Additionally, you can automatically reject incoming calls, preventing interruptions during your gameplay, or you can choose to put them on hold instead. You have the option to change the style of the message notification. Normally, a bubble will appear by default. However, you can choose to have strips that move across the screen instead. Additionally, you have the ability to modify the speed at which these strips move. Besides its transparency, lastly, they offer another option with a small pop-up tab for new notifications, allowing you to check them. It provides 3 options, making it the most advanced software I've seen for this purpose. You can also completely hide notifications, and it includes an option to prevent the game from disconnecting when you receive a call, and also have a prevention with the navigation gestures, ensuring that you don't experience any accidental activations. This also includes the screenshot option I mentioned lets you modulate the voice to sound different. You also have various light effects to change as you like in the back, making your gameplay look spectacular. On the backside of the device, we also come across an option known as game filters. This feature, as you'll notice, provides us with the ability to experience a different visualization of the game contents. When it comes to the coloring options, it can be set to an inverted view, which is extremely useful in very dark games, helping to see better. Alternatively, it can be set to faded gray, soft, or shadow enhancement, each offering a unique visual experience. Additionally, we have the capability to adjust the intensity of the surround sound, particularly when we are using headphones, enhancing the audio experience. And besides the triggers, we will discover the tilt controls, which would complement them excellently. This is because not only can we map 2 buttons, but in this scenario we could map even more buttons just by tilting our phone. For instance, I often mention that with this forward twist, we could enable the option to reload the weapon, as an example. So that's the whole explanation. Now, observe how effortlessly, with just the correct trigger, I am able to shoot. By performing this gesture, the gun reloads instantly. Then you can really benefit a lot because you have tilt gestures available in this axis, in another axis, and even more. Therefore, you can have numerous actions already mapped out directly when using this device during play. And ultimately, there's also the magic bottom feature, which allows the volume buttons to act as triggers by activating other buttons on the interface. Simply configure it and decide the placement of these buttons according to your preference. So, without a doubt, the overall sensation is it is incredibly comprehensive, featuring a wide array of controls and a multitude of software enhancements to provide you with the ultimate gaming experience. In Call of Duty, you will encounter top-notch graphics set at the highest possible rate by default. It's important to note that the ultra frame rate is also available in this scenario, however. The graphic quality does decrease to a medium level when this option is chosen. But if you prioritize graphics, it's worth mentioning that it is compatible with an impressive variety of options. The truth is that this device is designed to provide you with a level of graphic compatibility that you would typically only find in much more expensive cell phones, which is why it is so appealing. First, we tested it in Battle Royale mode, prioritizing graphic quality, and noticed that it consistently delivered an average of 60 frames per second. The stability it offered was truly impressive. We could even say it was excellent. When compared to other devices in the same category, the performance it delivers is undeniably superior. It is quite beneficial for gamers. However, it should be noted that the screen recordings might not appear as smooth as the actual gameplay experience. This is just a minor detail, but if you intended to record gameplay, the default setting records at 24 frames per second. In our case, we left it as is because we didn't notice it initially. Certainly, if you increase the screen recording to 60 frames per second, the performance might be slightly more impacted. We then played in Battle Royale mode, giving priority to the frames per second, and in this case, it achieved 89 frames per second on average, again having excellent stability. There were almost no low peaks, with the lowest being just 79 frames per second. This means you can expect to play very smoothly. However, keep in mind that the screen recording doesn't quite capture this smoothness as it defaults to 24 frames per second. So don't let this gameplay footage mislead you. The real experience will be significantly smoother than what the screen recording shows. However, when we switch to playing in multiplayer mode, we prioritize the frame rate. In this scenario, the device impressively managed to reach 120 frames per second. This is quite unexpected for a device within this category, making it truly seem like it provides an excellent performance. This fluidity is excellent, very stable, providing good playability. The temperature remains well controlled, so this processor is delivering performance comparable to a much more expensive device, which will undoubtedly be its most appealing aspect. In Henshin Impact, by default, the game is set to medium graphics quality. Here, we adjust it to a lower level, yet maintain 60 frames per second. As observed in the graph, it initially starts at 60 frames per second, but then was adjusted to run at 50 frames per second, experiencing several fluctuations. It appears that this game might not be the most optimal for this particular device, as it required a bit more effort to maintain performance. Therefore, the results here are not too surprising. Given the price, we shouldn't expect too much in this category, as there won't be many devices capable of running this content ultra smoothly. However, it still offers a decent gameplay experience, allowing you to enjoy the game adequately even. Not with the complete 100% stability that gamers require, but as you can see, even when recording the screen, it will still provide a good experience. Keep in mind what I mentioned earlier, that the screen recording is at 24 frames per second, so it may not appear very fluid. However, the gaming experience, in my opinion, is positive, especially when you consider the price of this cell phone. Then we tried Bright Memory, a game we rarely play. Initially, we only ran it at the high end, but our aim was to explore its full capabilities. So in this scenario, we increased it to 120 frames per second. It's evident that the advisable action here was also to reduce the graphics quality. Interestingly, the device manages to run this type of content in this category. I must emphasize, this is a test we don't usually conduct, but our curiosity led us to see what it could handle, even though it lacks graphical effects. It's not as appealing as high-end devices, but with good reflections and graphics, by the way, all the games ran with. High performance mode on, averaging 64 frames per second with a low of 35, so maintain good gameplay. However, in this scenario, when attempting to hit 120, we observed significant instability in the graphics with numerous fluctuations occurring. Yet, I must emphasize, this is a test we typically apply to cell phones that might cost 4 times more than this one. So, considering this, you can understand how appealing this cell phone could be for gamers. Even so, we could say the temperature was well controlled, given the level of testing we applied. Finally, we played Guttering Waves, one of the most challenging games out there. In this case, we decided to keep part of the standard settings that have been chosen for us by the average resolution. However, we increased to 60 frames per second to explore its capabilities, and indeed it was quite surprising. Although we must note that it was restricted to 45 frames per second, this limitation turned out to be a positive aspect, because it actually made it possible to reduce the jitter significantly, with the lowest peak being 40. As you see it kept. It was quite a remarkable experience at the time to be playing, even though the temperature was noticeably high. However, the most significant aspect is that despite experiencing this elevated temperature, it was still an enjoyable time. On the outer lid, if it continued to maintain a smooth and consistent performance, I want to emphasize again that the screen recording was done at 24 frames per second, which might slightly mislead you. However, the truth is that when you are actually playing, you might feel like you can't play the game, but you will still be able to view the game from a different perspective. Super fluid. This is a fully recommended cell phone for gamers, although it is not free of errors. For example, in this case, we must say that we also tried to test Dark Street, but unfortunately marks an unknown error when trying to open the game possibly. It will be solved through some update, but I just wanted to tell you. I also forgot to mention that it features a 6-layer vapor chamber cooling system, which significantly aids in maintaining optimal temperature control for this graphics quality. In conclusion, this device has very few weak points, always considering the price range. In its design, we will find positive things. It has good aesthetics, especially for gamers. It will be very attractive by the fact of having backlights that you can configure for a lot of things. Perhaps in resistance, it could be left owing slightly, considering that other devices in this segment might start offering more resistance. With emphasis, but that's one of the few drawbacks we can mention. The screen is great, AMOLED 144Hz, has stereo sound. The cameras are not so attractive, but I think in the segment still come to meet. Especially going to stand out in video recording, because by integrating a process, powerful if it has recording capabilities in 4K at 60 frames per second with the main camera and also K, but at 30 frames per second with the front camera, even the ultra-wide. Camera can record in 4K, then the capabilities are very good, although the quality is not extraordinary. But I think for the segment video recording could get to stand out a bit. In the battery, I think there is not something extraordinary, but complies. However, if you have G connectivity as well as Wi-Fi 6, very useful for downloading heavy games faster, and forgot to tell you that. It has wireless charging, something very uncommon in the range, but definitely the highlight would be its performance. Comes with MediaTek processor. The 8350 Ultimate is outstanding for its class, offering near flagship performance comparable to top models from a year or two ago. Seeing this level of performance in this category is impressive. Apps launch quickly, your edits. It includes 12 GB of physical RAM and 256 GB of storage, which is also incredibly fast. This means that installing games is quick, and naturally, gamers will be extremely pleased with the performance you can achieve on this device. You have the ability to play very demanding content with quite impressive graphical effects. I wouldn't claim it's at the exact same level as today's high-end gaming devices, but it is remarkably close. Seeing such performance in this price range is truly impressive. In addition to all the software that comes to enhance and complement the overall experience, there are touch triggers located on the frame. These touch triggers can be utilized effectively to map virtual buttons or even to activate macros. This means that with just a single touch, You can initiate a sequence of movements that you have recorded beforehand, making the experience truly impressive. Furthermore, you have the ability to map the volume buttons and even map the turns. You perform on the device to enable a wide variety of options within your game. Now, the truth is the feeling is spectacular for gamers. I insist it has few weak points, but distribution is one. If you dislike online shopping, you'll struggle since it's only on Mercado Libre and TikTok Shop. However, if you enjoy online shopping, you'll be thrilled with this phone's results. We've come to the end of this video for now. If you enjoyed it, feel free to let us know, and we'll see you next time.